Thank you, councillors. I'll ask you to take your seats when you can. Thank you all, and good evening, councillors, staff and members of the public. Welcome to the City's Public Agenda Briefing Forum. My name is Councillor David Madolo and I will be chairing this forum tonight. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land we meet, together with those from all cultures and backgrounds who have each contributed to the City of Kalamunda and made it the wonderful and diverse place that it is today. The operation of this forum is in accordance with the City's adopted Public Agenda Briefing Forum policy and procedure and is governed by the provisions of the Local Government Act, Standing Orders and City of Kalamunda Code of Conduct. This Agenda Briefing Forum provides the opportunity for information to be provided and additional information to be sought prior to the presentation of these items at the next ordinary meeting of Council for consideration and decision. Members of the public who wish to ask a question or speak to an item will be asked to provide only the suburb in which they reside and not their full address. Emergency procedures. In the event of an emergency, please follow the instructions given by City staff and remain at the assembly point until advertised, or rather advised, that it is safe to leave. This meeting is being live streamed and I would like to welcome those watching remotely. CEO, are there any apologies or leaves of absence?
Through you, Chair, Councillor Jeff Stallard is an apology for tonight.
Thank you. CEO, are there any disclosure of financial and proximity interests?
Through you, Chair, no, there aren't any.
And finally, are there any disclosure of interests affecting impartiality?
Through you, Chair, no, there aren't.
In which case we move to agenda item number 4, which is the announcements by the member presiding without discussion. I advise there are none. We move to agenda item 5, public question time. And public questions, for the sake of streamlining questions and ensuring they correlate with the reports, we will allow public questions and statements as at the time or immediately following the presentation of the report. I confirm as per item 7 that there are no public submissions received in writing, and as per item 8 on the agenda, there are no petitions received this evening. We move then to agenda item number 9, which is confidential items announced but not discussed. There are confidential attachments for items 10.1.1 and 10.2.1. I advise if you have any questions in relation to these attachments, they will be taken at the end of the public session and behind closed doors. We move then to item number 10, which is reports to Council. Our first report tonight, as I understand, comes from our Development Services, and 10.1.1 being the Structure Plan Amendment, Lot 12, Sultana Road East in Forestfield. I'd like to invite our Manager of Approval Services, Regan Travers, to present. Questions by elected members and the public will be accepted following the presentation. Over to you, Regan.
Thank you. Through the Chair. This item, if I can just... Thank you. So this item is regarding a structure plan amendment for Lot 12, 256 Sultana Road East in Forestfield. The structure plan amendment proposes 3 main changes to the existing plan. The first is increasing the density from R12.5 to R25 for the lots fronting Sultana Road East, and from R20 to R30 and R40 towards the rear of the site. The second change is the removal of a small portion of public open space in the rear corner of the lot in favour of the landowner providing a cash in lieu contribution for public open space. The final change is to the road network depicted in the structure plan, including removing and realigning some internal roads. The proposal was advertised for a period of 28 days in accordance with the city's policy and planning legislation. 14 submissions were received, 10 of those were objections, 2 were in support, and 2 were more general comments. The concerns broadly related to the impact of traffic, car parking, vegetation removal, are all related to the increase in density. In terms of the density, the interface between the site and Sultana Road East is proposing R25, which is double the density of the original structure plan. In the images on the screen, you can see a comparison of the difference between an R20 and R25 density. Really, the main impact of that additional density is the loss of the backyard space. There will still be 4 lots facing Sultana Road East, which is the main interface. So it's the depth of the lots that is changing. The proposed increase to density is consistent with the strategic planning framework and will allow for a range of dwelling and household types. It's likely through a future subdivision application that a local development plan could be implemented over the lots to help address built form, vehicle access, and building design to ensure that the residential design appropriately responds to the prevailing and desired outcomes of that locality. In terms of the public open space being removed, it's that small portion in the corner. This portion is quite small and in the officer's view would not provide a meaningful benefit to the existing and future community. On this basis, a cash in lieu contribution could be applied, which would enable the city to use these funds to upgrade existing POS within the locality. This is in accordance with the city's public open space strategy, which notes that the Forestfield area has a surplus of public open space generally, and the focus should be on increasing the quality rating of the public open space, existing public open space. The last change is the change to the road network. The proposed changes to the road network would allow for a more appropriate and uniform road connection in line with what's happening in other areas of the structure plan. Essentially, it's minimising the amount of roads and turning it into more of a grid pattern. These changes were supported with a traffic impact assessment. The officer recommendation is that the amendment to the structure plan is forwarded to the West Australian Planning Commission for approval without modifications. Available for questions.
Thank you, Regan. I'd like to first ask if any elected members have any questions this evening. Mayor Thomas.
Regan, why is there a different density for the front and rear, and is this very common?
The different density facing Sultana Road West is to provide what's considered, I guess, an appropriate interface or transition with the more rural style properties across the other side of the road. What we see in this application is an increase in the density, but maintenance of that interface and the impact of it. So we're going from what could have been 4 lots at a lower density, still 4 lots at a higher density. It's just that they're much shorter in their depth. The area's changed a lot since the structure plan was put in place. It was in the late 90s. It's one of our oldest structure plans, and is actually due to expire next year. It's common, and we have other examples within this structure plan area where landowners are seeking to update the densities to reflect today's standards and not, I guess, the lot sizes that were more common in the late 90s. So it's a common change.
Follow-up question. Ma'am.
Follow-up question, did I misunderstand? So the lot at the rear, not on Sultana Road, is that a higher density than those 4 on Sultana Road? That was what I was asking. Why is that density different?
So, through the chair, the density is a gradual change. So you usually wouldn't want to have an abrupt interface of really high density development, or in this case, really high density development in something like an R40 density, and across the road have rural land. So the normal approach for structure planning is to stage that through and set it back from more sensitive land uses or areas where there might be an expectation of a certain amenity. In this case, it's more of a rural style amenity, and allow for higher density in an area of the site where it's near other areas of high density.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll hand it over to Councillor Cannon. You have a question?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Sorry, what are the lot sizes?
They range quite a lot. This isn't a proposal with that's setting the lot sizes. They'll be subject to a future subdivision, but at R40 they could go down to as low as 180 square metres in the red section of the report, the highest density, and anywhere up to the usual 500 square metres around that mark. So it's quite a big range.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Thanks, Regan, for your presentation. When you talk about the POS that was quite small, so so you would get rid of that and take a 10% from the developer. So how big is that? How big would that POS have been if it had remained?
I don't have the exact size in front of me, but I can confirm that later.
Okay, thank you.
It really is just accounting for a small part of road reserve. So yeah, quite small. Not considered to be in the planning officer's assessment the loss of a usable space.
Okay.
Merely the fringe of I guess an expansion of the Crumper Creek area.
Okay, and can I just have a follow-up to that? So when we talk about the 10%, the cash in lieu being upgrading another POS, would that be in sort of that location, so it's going to benefit those people, or could it be sort of anywhere within the sort of Forestfield, I suppose, area?
Thank you for the question. Ideally, it's located as close as possible to where the development that generates that contribution. There are a couple of public open space areas very close. It's also a balance of between that proximity and public open space areas where the city is actually planning some upgrades or are more suitable for improvements. So that's part of the scheduling as well. So through this application, it wouldn't be until the subdivision occurred that requirement to pay money would arise, and it would be a stage after that that's much more within the city's control that we could determine exactly where that goes.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions, councillors? No, in which case we'll move to any questions and statements from the public. I have recorded here Jared Ross. Jared, if you could please come up to the microphone there, state your name and suburb in which you live, please, and then do you have a question or a statement this evening?
It's more of a statement, so...
Okay. I'll hand it over to you, Jared.
Yeah, thank you. So my name's Jared Ross. I'm a principal in Tanner Borough. Anyone has questions of me as the proponent?
Thank you, Jared. I appreciate that opportunity and throw it over to councillors. Do you have any questions of Mr Ross? Mayor.
Jared, do the owners plan to keep the house?
No, they do not.
Okay.
The proposal is for a residential subdivision, but would not retain the house.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors, for Jared? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. Jared, the land to the south that abuts Crumpet Creek, is there any intention to apply to shift a road reserve into that area?
I'm not 100% certain I understand the question.
So
Through the chair.
Canopy Court kind of touches the corner of lot 256 or number, whatever it is.
Under a proposed subdivision, the road would extend from Canopy Court up through proposed lot 12 to be able to provide access to the new lots.
Okay.
And there is a proposed road reserve that would then go east-west that would ultimately connect in with Mangosteen Drive, I believe it is, to the west.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. And just for the benefit of those who are watching online and perhaps didn't catch the Mayor's question, I might repeat it on your behalf, Mayor, if that's okay. Do the Lianas intend on keeping the house that's located on the property currently? Sorry, that's a question for you, Jared. If you could just repeat that for the record.
Yes, sure, sorry. No, there is no intention to retain the existing dwelling on the site.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Cannon, my apologies.
Thank you. Do the owners actually have an ideal amount of lots that they want to put on that particular block?
Through the chair, we have done a number of different subdivision concepts over them, and we have discussed those with the city. There is somewhere between 18 and 28 lots, depending on the concept that we may propose.
Are there any further questions, councillors, of Jared? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Hi, Jared. Thank you. Is there any sort of like significant trees on that block, or vegetation? So what would be kept? What would you be looking at not keeping?
Yep, sure. So there are only 2 mature trees on site that would be worthy of retention. Although it looks like there are a number of trees on site, they actually all sit around the boundary. So we've had the site surveyed by a surveyor. They actually all sit on the boundary on the neighbouring sites or within the road reserve for Sultana Road East. One of the plans that Mr Travers put up showed the design, the proposed subdivision design for 4 lots fronting Sultana Road East. The design of that is to demonstrate that all of those mature trees within the Sultana Road verge can be retained, because we understand that is quite important from council's perspective and from the community's perspective. So the expectation is that all of those mature trees are retained.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Jared, on Canopy Court, there's a development of, I think it looks to be about 8 dwellings on 150 square metres. Is that the type of product you're looking to provide?
That product is actually at R60, 150 square metres would only fit within the R60 coding. So the product that we would look to provide at a maximum is R40, which could go down to a minimum of 180 square metres. So the minimum size product that we provide would still be larger than those dwellings.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, councillors. Another opportunity for questions of Mr Ross, if you have any. No, in which case I'll say thank you, Jared, for your attendance this evening. Council, we move on to item 10.4, given that there are no asset services or corporate services reports. This 10.4 is the community engagement reports. At 10.4.1 we have the mosquito management plan. I'd like to invite our Acting Director of Community Services, Freya Aliff, to provide us with a presentation. Over to you, Freya.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present the City's very first mosquito management plan to Council for endorsement. The purpose of the report is for, as mentioned, Council to endorse the mosquito management plan, which is an overarching document that states the City's objectives, identifies nuisances and disease risks, mosquito breeding sites, various management strategies, landowner responsibilities as well, and budget and resource requirements. There are approximately over 100 species of mosquitoes in WA, a number of which are serious pests and or disease vector-borne mosquitoes. So mosquito management is very important. We currently carry out trapping in the City of Kalamunda, so we've got a good set of data to form this mosquito management plan. For the City to be entitled to obtain grant funding, we have to become a member of what's called a Contiguous Local Authority Group, or a CLAG, and we have to present a mosquito management plan for adoption. So the CLAG is, as I mentioned, a mechanism for local governments to obtain funding. And it's comprised of local governments that share common waterways or land where mosquito breeding may be an issue. And so the recommendation for this report is that Council endorse the City's first mosquito management plan. Any questions?
Thank you. I'll throw it open to elected members. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you. You briefly touched on it, that the need to do this is obviously to get some grant funding, but what will the grant funding be used to do?
Thank you, through the Chair. So currently we have a lot of, we do a lot of mosquito trapping, so the very technical paint tin that you see hanging in the trees with a border around it that's actually got dry ice in it, and it traps mosquitoes. So we also put pellets into drainways to stop larvae from developing into mosquitoes, and then we collect all of the mosquitoes and identify them and look for any trends. So the funding will support the purchasing of baits, the purchasing of traps, and go towards the project officer that's responsible for mosquito management.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell.
Sorry, that was my second question. What does it currently cost, and obviously what would the saving be with the grant?
Through the Chair, I'll have to take that one on notice and get back to you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Mayor Thomas.
Does the City of Kalamunda consider to have a bad mosquito problem, or is it less than others or more than others?
Through the Chair, we're not unique, I guess. Our neighbouring councils share a similar problem. We do have a lot of waterways, but in actual fact it's mostly private property where we tend to see issues, pools that have gone green, or bird baths, for example. So we do have mosquitoes. I can't really say if it's more than our neighbouring LGAs. I think we're quite similar.
They're pretty bad at my place. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you for that. First question, do we have areas in the city which are worse than others? So that would be my first question.
Through the chair, yes we do, and there's a map of those areas within the mosquito management plan.
And my second question relates to micro bat boxes. And I'm just wondering whether we might think about possibly putting some of that money, if we get that, to perhaps the purchase or at least the subsidy of some of those bat boxes, because they do eat twice their size of mosquitoes in one night. So if you haven't got a micro bat box, you need one. Thanks.
Through the chair, yes, we are part of that program, and that's definitely something we can consider.
Probably the best thing I'll learn all night, actually. I'll get a couple of my place. Any other questions, councillors? No? In which case, I'll throw it open. Any questions from the public or statements on this item? No? Fantastic. Thank you very much, Freya. We now move to 10.4.2, the Kalamunda Governor Sterling Archers Archery Club Renewal Works. And again, Freya, I'll pass to you to present to us. Just a reminder that questions by elected members and the public will be accepted following Freya's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to seek Council's approval to undertake urgent renewal works required to the Kalamunda Archery building, and to include that as part of this financial year. Works are required to address structural and safety concerns at an approximate cost total project of $98,000. And the funds for the works are available from operating expenditure and also the Land and Property Enhancement and Maintenance Reserve. So Kalamunda Governor Sterling Archers have been operating from Maid of Our Reserve and this building since 1984. The club has over 100 members, and the club leases the building from the city under a community lease. The lease is currently in holdover, and the tenants have advised that they wish to extend or renew the lease for a further 5 years as per our policy. Unfortunately, the club room and ablution block requires urgent renewal works, and a structural assessment carried out in 2023 deemed both the clubhouse and the ablution block unsafe, and therefore the club has not been able to use the facility. So the issues were first brought to the city's attention in 2017, and unfortunately the issues have gotten worse over time. It's now at the stage, as mentioned, that the building and ablution block cannot be used, so the renewal works are required for the club to have an ongoing home for their sport, and further to reduce the risk to the city and also club members. The works, as per the structural assessment, should give the use or the club a use of a further 5 years, and it will in fact reduce other costs that the city is currently bearing by providing temporary sanitary facilities on site. And we have explored alternative locations and options with the club, but unfortunately due to the uniqueness of the sport we couldn't find an alternative home, and they have advised they're happy to stay here. So the recommendation is that Council approve the urgent renewal works to the Kalamunda Archery Club located at Maid of Our Reserve as part of the 24-25 budget, and authorise the proposed amendments to the budget to fund the renewal works. Thank you.
Thank you, Freya. I'll open it up first to the elected members if you have any questions. Councillor O'Donnell, I see your hand up.
Thanks. I just have two questions. You mentioned that since 2023 they weren't using the facility. So where were they, and why were we paying for temporary toilets? Or maybe I missed something.
Thank you. Through the chair. So there is a site shed that's on the site. So the club worked closely with the city to remove the specialised equipment into that shed, and the ablution block was not able to be used, and that's why we got temporary sanitary facilities, so they could still use the grounds, the site shed for storage, and the sanitary facilities in place of the existing ablution block.
Follow-up question, Councillor O'Donnell.
I'm making an assumption that the club has no capacity to contribute any funding to this. I guess I'm just kind of concerned that if we're going to look at a 5-term lease and it's going to cost $100,000, we potentially could be putting $20,000 a year into something that may actually cease, which it may not happen, but I'm just wondering.
Through the chair, we haven't asked the club to contribute. Maintenance and repairs of the building is the city's responsibility under the current lease.
Thank you. I have a question. Assuming that the recommendation is passed at the OCM, how quickly could works be undertaken?
To the Chair, thank you for the question. To inform the Council report, we've engaged with our builder, who we have an existing contract with. So I'd anticipate we'd be able to mobilise fairly quickly. When I say fairly quickly, I would envision, that a month's period would be, a reasonable expectation.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. The question I have, I noticed that in the report, Freya, you talked about a 5-year period. Are we looking at the notion that that building only has 5 years left in its existence? So we're spending $100,000 now. Am I reading that correctly, that we're thinking it would need to be replaced at the end of that time?
Through the chair, so the structural report talks to at least a further 5 years. There is a master plan for Made of Our Reserve, which does indicate a new building for the site. However, when investigations were carried out due to the large amount of TEC in the area and the increase in bowel requirements, that significantly increased the cost of that new building. We will have to do a feasibility study should a new building go in there to see what is required. So I kind of answered your question, but not. So a new building will probably eventually be required. But at this stage, we can't provide a new building or an alternative.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? No, in which case I'd like to acknowledge that we do have Bill Nicholson and Doug Harvey from the Archery Club here this evening. Open it to you, gentlemen. You don't have to, but if you'd like to make a statement about the club or ask any questions regarding the report, now's your opportunity to do so. Thank you. I think the microphone's on. If you could just state your name and suburb, please, for the record.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, through the chair, Mr. Chairman. Councillors, I am Bill Nicholson. I am the president of the Kalamunda Archery Club. I have been for best part of 40 years. I'm from my actual residential area is in Bellevue, which is the adjoining area. We will be hoping to do a delegation to your main council meeting. So I'm available for general queries for everybody. But suffice to say at this stage that we're supporting very much getting back into our building. We have 100 people there on a regular basis, not just once a week. We have people there almost every day of the week, morning through afternoons and evenings. We have 100 people there. We have one toilet at the present time. It certainly is a little bit cosy. And the grounds that we have, we would be seeking not just the 5-year term, but we've been there for 40 years. It's a very vibrant club, and we'd pick, if you could give us 50 years, we'd be very happy to take it. But certainly 5 years is in line with your current policies. And our club is continuing and going forward. So if you can see a way to giving us a home again, and we'll get no longer living in the shed, it'll be wonderful. Thank you. I'm available if there's any questions of me.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wondering what the fact that you're now having to use the little shed or little toilet, what impact is that having on your club now?
It certainly makes it challenging. The building, our clubhouse, is behind the shooting line, and we shoot in a southerly direction. the equipment shed that we have, it's a reasonably generous shed, is off on the western side. So obviously there's an increased risk for us, for people walking across the ground or coming into the ground from other directions. Previously, with the building behind us and shooting away from the building, there was a much higher safety situation. So we just have to be a little bit more cognizant of more of the safety issues around, and making sure that we're keeping everybody safe.
Thank you. Mayor Thomas, you have a question?
This question has no bearing on the item, but it's just my curiosity. What age group are your members?
We have everything ranging from 7-year-olds
Oh, wow.
to 84. Archery is one of those sports where you can have young people, old people, men, ladies, a whole mix of nationalities can all be standing on the shooting line at the same time, all competing with each other. And we tend to shoot arrows of 6 arrows per end, and then you go and collect your arrows. So it's fantastic to be able to see such a mix of people collecting their arrows together, having a little chat as they're going up and down. It really is the one sport that covers everybody, whether they're in wheelchairs or just walking like everybody else. It's probably the all-encompassing sport.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you very much for your time this evening. It came down actually, incidentally, to one of your have-a-go days, and needless to say, I won't be making the Olympics anytime soon. We move on to item 10.5. There are no Office of the CEO reports this evening, in which case I'd like to declare this evening's meeting closed at 7:07 p.m. and thank everyone for your attendance.